Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of a Super Subs podcast. Your host, Harish and Narvin. So, I feel like we have a lot to discuss from just the Premier League. We'll go through those games first, talk through some other games across other leagues, then maybe cover some Champions League games. I know, right now as we're recording, it's Wednesday, so some games just happened today. Wasn't able to catch all of them, but can talk about a few that we were. And then there's still some Europa League games. Also, maybe for the weekend, just do some predictions and what to expect this weekend, games to watch. Um, but as usual, we will start with our super subs of the week. Narv, I'll let you go ahead, do the honors here.
Let's see. So I think this week there's actually quite a bit of super subs to pick from. Um, but the one player I chose, and he didn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet though, was Darwin Núñez. To me, I think his performance was just quite inspiring. Came on for Diogo Jota around the 30th minute because of injury. And Darwin Núñez, I know me and you have talked about him, and we're we're a fan of him. It's just he's still a bit raw in his abilities, and for some reason it feels like Slot's kind of not favored him this year. Um, and of course Sunday was a big matchup against Chelsea. Probably talk about that game further later on. But he came on and it was a very moving performance. I mean, he was dropping deep, pinging balls. Let's see, I had some stats here of his. He had 75% of his passes completed. Um, he had seven duels, one out of 12. He had a couple aerial duels, clearances. He put in a shift defensively too. Not kind of just playing up top, just dropping back, helping out defensively. So all around, I think
Oh, I think you forgot
really
another like key stat I remember seeing.
which one?
He had two rage battles where he couldn't control his emotions, acting like a little teenager.
That one, him and Slot were both raging.
No,
Um,
that one I understand. Like I didn't think he that was really a foul,
the
but it was
shoulder to
funny. Just
shoulder one. Yeah, the
yeah,
reaction was hilarious.
yeah,
Slot was
that's
looking like he's about to lose it too.
classic Nunu
hmm
passion.
so here's my super sub. Hopefully that, depending on how long Jota's out, hopefully that propels him into the starting lineup going forward.
That's an interesting shout for a super sub this week. Um, I went a little different. I thought there were a couple other players that really changed the game on its head. My super sub this week is a legend of the game, Luka Modric. Um, and this game particularly I'm talking about is over the weekend on Saturday, when Real Madrid played Celta Vigo. Man, I feel like every podcast is like a deja vu again, where it feels like we talk about this Real Madrid team struggling going forward, but Celta Vigo, honestly, they were the more dominant team for a lot of the second half. Real got the early goal, but Celta Vigo tied it up, and then they were on Real Madrid pressing that second half. And honestly, they had the more clear chances, but Modric came in 63rd or minute, and then he had a nice assist that ultimately uh, that goal led to be the winner of the game to Vinny Jr., who's had a incredible week so far. So
Probably round up getting the Ballon d'Or next week too. So
next Monday, yeah, hopefully,
I think
um,
yeah,
he
it's
definitely
deserving
should.
for.
Um, so those are our super subs for this week. Um, but why don't we move into kind of the Premier League roundup? So, um, I think the first one we should talk is maybe just the first game uh, of the weekend, which was, I mean, there were a ton of really entertaining games in the Premier League, but let's start with the first one of the weekend, Tottenham versus West Ham. Um, just to kind of summarize for those listening, West Ham got off to a pretty early start. Kuda scoring a goal, and then uh, Tottenham kind of coming back and ended up winning 4-1. There was a red card at the end of the game with Kudus again. Um, but yeah, what did you think of the this performance?
I thought first half was a bit of an even matchup. Um, I think West Ham showed some of their abilities. Tottenham weren't quite up to par that first half, but that second half is like right out the gate, just complete trashing of West Ham. But I will give credit to Kudos. I think he was one of the best players on the pitch, for either
Oh,
team.
for sure.
Um, but you could just definitely tell he was just frustrated at that point.
Yeah.
He was just
I,
ready to
I was
fight.
surprised. I was surprised the ref took so long to give that red and had to go to like VAR because I thought when he ended up getting the red for like pushing in the face and like almost punching, but like I thought like he could have gotten the red for kicking who was
Ben
it, Vin
Ben on the
Vin
ground.
Ven on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kicking him twice on the ground. I thought that was enough to send him off.
It was a very like on that instant replay, you could tell like it was definitely on purpose too.
Oh yeah.
Like he tried to be sly with it, but it was so obvious. And he was just ready to fight anyone at that point.
Yeah. I think one of my main takeaways was how I mean, Tottenham, we've been seeing this where they've been able to create chances this year, but finishing has been poor in front of goal. XG's been high, but they haven't been able to convert that to goals. But man, with Sonny back, he looks like he's in form already, man. First game back, and he looked amazing. I mean, Warner again, like he's got great opportunities, but his finishing is just poor, and we saw it with Sonny today that what Spurs are really capable of.
I think the also the most I guess for Tottenham fans controversial, but I think the right decision was subbing out James Madison, bringing in Sarr
Yeah.
at halftime. Um, and Madison, you could just kind of see his reaction. He did not look happy. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought that was it was kind of unexpected considering how Arne's uh or Arne Ange likes to play, but
Arn slot in
I,
your head.
dude, it was a rough weekend. Um, but Ange, the way he likes to play, kind of going full attack. Like I thought Madison would stay in, but I think this is a nice like you're able to see an evolution of Ange, kind of playing the game out, because they really gained momentum at the end of the first half, and I think Pep adds a little more balance, and he's more of that box to box type midfielder that they really needed that game. Whereas Madison doesn't offer you much tracking back.
Yeah, I think Sarr is, I think we've mentioned it before, like one of those underrated players that go under the radar. Because he doesn't
Mhm.
really appear on the stat sheet, but he's a bit of a smooth operator for that team.
Yeah.
And then I think Ange listened to our previous episode because putting Basuma in.
Yes, sir, my boy. I mean, he was crucial in kind of that holding position because Bentancur cannot defend for his life. Paquetá actually had probably one of his worst games this
Yeah, he was
season.
uninspiring.
Yeah, he's looked quite poor this year so far.
It's really just Bowen and Kudos that are the outlets for West Ham that any chance to just come, they just rely so heavily on those two.
hmm And then Vicario definitely lost some of your what do you call these points?
Aura, the
Aura points?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
his
his
aura
hat.
he lost. Yeah, when he put that cap on.
I mean, gotta do what you gotta do.
Um, and then one last point I had on this game was just Kulusevski. He's looking nicer and nicer, like drifting in. from that wide role like into the kind of more centrally.
Yeah, he looked poor last year, but he's looked comfortable this year. It's interesting for Sweden too. During international games, he plays in the central midfield role now as well. So maybe he's just getting more comfortable.
Mhm.
So
And then Brendan Johnson, his goal scoring streak finally came to an end.
he had a couple of chances where he could have
Yeah.
finished. There was one that he like kind of nutted, but all right. So moving on, we can go into. Let's see. There were a good chunk of games in the 10 o'clock window. Um, and maybe we'll start with the Brighton Newcastle game. Brighton ended up winning 1-0. Uh, Danny Welbeck scored the only goal of the game. Kind of really against the run of play.
Prayers up to him though. I hope his injury isn't too serious as it looked getting stretchered off.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so bad for him just considering the career he could have had and potential he had, but just really ruined by injuries. But yeah, I mean, nice finish, and he's had an incredible start to the year. Um, yeah, my main takeaway here was Brighton actually, they like to play very aggressive, but they really sat deep in this game. Um, it was interesting to see like Welbeck and Ferguson both kind of almost playing at the top of their own box. That's how deep they were defending. I mean, look at all the other games they've played this year. Their center backs are playing at the halfway line. Um, so it was interesting how they adjusted, but they weren't defending too well, even with all those men behind the ball. It was honestly just Newcastle had the better chances and they had a ton of chances, just poor finishing.
And Brighton's goal kind of came off of just a counterattack
Exactly, yeah.
against the run of play. I thought, as you were saying, Newcastle were kind of dictating the play. I mean, they had 60% of the possession, 21 shots through the game. I mean,
Hmm.
I thought they were bound to score. But Brighton, they were sitting really deep and kind of hard to break down, but Newcastle, they were kind of dictating that game.
Yeah, someone that's kind of disappeared for me during games this year for Newcastle has been Isak. Um, he kind of like goes throughout games where he just doesn't seem to be really interested in the play or um I'm not sure what's up with him. I wonder if he'll
I know it
um
was his first one back from like the toe injury, but I know like even apart from this game, earlier in the previous games, he's been a little quiet.
mhm. Yeah, I mean for international play for Sweden, he's played kind of the number 10 type role or like right behind the striker. Um and then the machine playing up top, but so he's comfortable kind of dropping in. You've seen it timeless um many times, but he just kind of seems uninterested. So he was someone that really disappointed me this past weekend for Newcastle.
And then to the contrary, I think that I've just grown to like over the years is for Newcastle is Joe Linton.
Hmm.
Um, I know we used to give him so much crap like when we first watched him come through Newcastle, but that's because Steve Bruce didn't really know how to utilize him. He was playing him as a striker. Um, but once he dropped into that midfield role, like we saw glimpses and we're like, oh, this guy's different. And like now
Yeah,
it's just he's like another I think he should be like in a starting role for even like Brazil's national team.
yeah, I
Um,
could see that.
he's so influential for what Newcastle do.
Yeah, a player that he kind of reminds me of. Although I mean, I'm not saying they're gonna have the same career trajectory. I cannot speak, but you know what I mean. It's late in the night. I'm not saying they're gonna have the same path. I'll just stick to that word. But he reminds me like the way he plays of Morgan Rogers, the way he's able to carry the ball, the pace that he has, kind
Strength,
of
yeah.
strength, size, and everything. Like their whole body of work
He has
uh
a skill. Yeah.
is it reminds me of I mean Morgan Rogers is much younger, but that's kind of the vibes he gives me at times, but they're kind of at different stages of their careers.
If you were a Newcastle fan, who would you like? Because I know a lot of Newcastle fans, it seems like they really have Bruno Guimaraes as like their favorite, but I think Joelinton is slight. I think he's slightly more important to the team.
Yeah. I th yeah, I think both players are important, but if you were to lose Joe Linton, I think it makes a bigger impact. And I mean, we saw that last year, what happened. But moving on from that game, maybe next we can go to Ipswich Everton. Um, this game, Everton won 2-0, thanks to a goal from Michael Keane. Uh, you know,
Should not be playing.
yeah, even the Everton fans, man, they like I've heard like in interviews and stuff where with fans and like whenever Michael Keane's in the starting lineup, their hope is just like, he doesn't make a mistake is like the one thing they always say.
It was a banger of a goal though.
It was an amazing strike, man. It was like he looked like a top forward with that strike.
Yeah, that was a ridiculous finish.
And then the first goal came in the first half with in Indije, I think is how you say it. I struggle with the pronunciation of his name, but
I think it's
yeah,
a
I mean,
guy.
and I, yeah. They say it with a J though, I think is how he says it.
Oh, okay.
Indije, I think. Um, I'll get it right next. I can't talk today, so um,
Crazy. It
he-
still blows my mind that he's from Senegal.
why you haven't seen a light-skinned brother from Senegal?
I didn't even think he was African. I think
Really?
he's a European.
Yeah, maybe. Uh, I think he does have like some of his family is from France.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
Um, but he had a pretty good goal as well. But I think again, my main takeaway for who was the most influential player this game, Dwight McNeil.
Yeah,
Round of applause for him.
he deserves big props.
Hmm.
I think he's really I think we've always seen glimpses, but like this season, he's just really taken it to another level. Um,
He's carrying that team on
yeah,
his back. He's the main guy.
for sure. I think Ndai we can see his like quality too. But yeah, Dwight McNeil, I think single-handedly is kind of carrying that team.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the scoreline, you would think Ipswich got dominated, but I mean, they honestly had a ton of chances too. Clark missed I would
Sitter.
consider a sitter, um, bad miss, but they had a few chances that they just didn't. Pickford had a couple good saves though, but Ipswich, they had their chances.
They also had to rotate quite a bit of players because there were some, even in their back four, some new names that were coming up for this game. I think it was due
Hmm.
to injuries. Um, but yeah, Ipswich, they had a few chances. I think I was a bit disappointed again. Calvin Phillips, he didn't look the best.
Poor.
He almost assisted Everton.
Hmm.
Sloppy. He's kind of like he's just one of those players that are a bit too casual at times. In situations where
Yeah.
you shouldn't be that relaxed. Um, so hopefully Ipswich get a win at some point because they're still winless. Um, but they got those four important draws.
Yeah, you had them staying up right this year,
Just surviving. Yep.
just surviving. Okay. Yeah, Everton though, they're slowly picking up some momentum. Yeah, I mean they started off really slow, but uh they got a win against Ipswich, picked up a point with Newcastle, beat Palace, and so I mean they're kind of on a roll now. They're finding their groove. I think next game we can go into. another 10 o'clock window is let's go to Old Trafford now. I think it's time. It's another 10 o'clock window game. Uh, Brentford scored stoppage time of first half, and then Manchester kind of turned it around second half. I mean, I would say Brentford were the better team first half, and after that goal, I was like, oh, here we go again. But I think second half they really turned it around.
Yeah, I think first half is kind of evenly matched. I'd say first part of that first half, Brentford for sure. I was um I was just praying really hard that the first 2 minutes of the game, just hopefully we don't concede
Hmm.
again within those 2 minutes.
Shade almost had
Yeah.
he had a tap in. He just completely missed his kick.
Yeah,
What, 2.5 minutes into the game?
yeah, that was so close. Um and then
O'Shea was looking silly on that play.
O'Shea. Uh,
Or, dude,
Johnny,
I
you mean?
can't talk. I can't talk, dude. Why am I saying O'Shea? Who does O'Shea even play? He plays for Ipswich now, right?
Which,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dude, what am I?
Oh,
Yeah.
John O'Shea, that man is beyond gone. But yeah, Johnny Evans should be beyond gone too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, second half, United, it was just all us. I think first half against Palace was our best like first half performance of the year, and then second half versus Brentford was probably our best performance in the second half. So we just gotta combine those two type performances. Um Delit though, I think our doctors like
Nah, that's on Ten Hag, dude. Because he was just telling the doctors to like put him back in. Like it was clear that he wasn't ready to go back in. And Ten Hag was like, "Oh, it's fine." Like, and he told him to go back in. But like, it was obviously not like the doctors didn't have the
he
chance to.
was like gushing blood. I'm like, dude, just bandage him up.
That wasn't gonna work. I felt like the cut was way too deep. He needed to get stitched up. I think did he get stitched up at half?
I think so.
Yeah,
I just put like
it was too deep.
itch and Vaseline on there.
Yeah, I mean, the first half they just put Vaseline and they were like, "Oh, it's gonna be fine." But dude, because freaking Ten Hag was saying like, "Oh, it's just dried blood," but I mean, dude, obviously not. It was like coming down
I
his
mean, fresh,
face.
yeah. Delit looked like he literally came out of like a war.
Yeah, dude, it was like World War II for him. It was
Um,
insane.
and it was funny. I just bring that up just because it's funny because the ref had to tell him to go out right before half during that corner because rules are rules. I mean, if you're bleeding, you have to
Yeah.
go out. So Delit goes out right when he goes out. Brentford score off the corner. Bad defending.
Hmm.
Dallo kind of just lost his man. Um, but yeah, second half. I think one player I want to give a shout out to, two players actually. One, Hoyland. I think that was one of his best towards the end of the first half, but then pretty much all the second half, that was one of his best, like just hold up plays, linking up with our other players. Um,
I'm sick of watching that dude
and then Garnacho, this kid, he's what
starboarding.
he's what Ted Lasso says, like of players that need to have like a mind of a goldfish. Like if he makes a mistake, he'll just go right back at it. Like he's not afraid to make a mistake. He'll always take on a man.
Hmm.
He kind of has just being like a Ronaldo fanboy. I think he just has like that mentality of like just wanting to be the best, thinking he's the best, which I mean, having a strong mentality can help if you're not the most like skilled. So I think Garnacho had a really inspiring performance to help us get the win.
Yeah, that's the one player that I was gonna give a shout out to as well. I think Garnacho was clearly the best player on that entire pitch on Saturday. He was cooking whoever, I forget the defender on the left side for Brentford, but was cooking him all game. I was surprised Brentford kind of left him marked one-on-one the entire game. Even after just the first half, he was cooking. I thought Thomas Frank would either make a substitution or kind of double him up on that side because Rashford wasn't really doing much. He did have a beautiful assist though, but um, I mean Garnacho was the main guy creating. But yeah, to your point, he does. You can tell he has that mentality where um, he wants to be like a legend or legend of the game, or like he wants to be great. So that paired with obviously he's got some skill. He wouldn't be playing for Manchester if he didn't. But that with the combination of his mentality, I mean, that is like a superstar in making. So,
I think just the one attribute he really needs to work on is his strength because he can get pushed off the ball kind of easily.
hmm
Um, and then I thought it was also quite interesting that Ten Hag, I mean, Garnacho and Rashford kind of switched a bit, but um, because they both like playing off the left, but they kind of let Garnacho play that role majority of the game. Um, because they usually let Rashford kind of stick to the left side. So
Yeah, I think Garnacho definitely looks better on that side. But again, I want to see Ahmad Diallo again, deja vu. But why is Diallo not playing over Rashford? I don't understand. Because the first few weeks of the season, he was, I thought, the biggest threat going forward for United.
yeah, I'm not sure why he's not coming on. Hopefully tomorrow in the Europa League he gets to start. He definitely
hmm
deserves a lot more playing time than he's getting.
It'll be interesting with that Xerxes dude. What's gonna happen to him? There's been rumors that he's kind of ready to leave United already in the January transfer window, right after coming on board. So whether that's for playing time or if he feels like he needs to develop somewhere else, or I'm not sure what his thinking is, but
I wouldn't mind giving him out like on loan, but I think if he wants to leave like permanently, that's just a bit of a poor mentality to have. Um, and then just the last takeaway of this game was I just thought Buemo, he's like their Brentford's influential player, but he kind of was quiet through the game, which
he
helped
he
us
looked
out.
a little off. The one player that looked really good for Brentford going forward was Damsgaard again. The way he was able to dribble out of some United press was insane. It was high risk, but he made it look pretty effortless. His passing was on point, but yeah, and Buemo just didn't look like he was ready this past weekend. So now if we want to go back to London and go to the Craven Cottage, where Fulham, they took an early lead from a Leno assist actually to Jimenez in the fifth minute.
Shout out
But
goalkeepers.
yep, shout out keepers. Does he have more assists than Anthony now this season?
Yes.
Nice. Um, and then Rogers ended up tying it up in the ninth minute. Um, and after that goal, Villa was really all over Fulham and should have had a few more, but didn't score until much later. Ollie Watkins in the second half, and then Fulham had an own goal as well in the second half.
I thought this
Um,
was quite an entertaining game though.
oh, it was a very entertaining game. Um, it was fun to see. Whenever Martinez saves a PK, it's always super entertaining. But I was surprised that Jimenez didn't take the penalty.
It's usually Pereira that's their designated taker.
It was a crap penalty though.
It was poor. That could have been a really big momentum swing too, if he converted it. But yeah, I mean Martinez, he's just so good at saving PKs.
Yeah, I thought Jimenez, man, he looked good again. Got his goal. He's had a two or three good game run of games for Fulham. So hopefully he's found some form. After starting hot with Wolves in the Premier League, he kind of fell off a little. He had that pretty bad injury against Chelsea, and then ever since he's kind of been quiet, but he had a nice finish this past weekend with his left foot. He bodied Pau Torres too,
And that was
which
one of the
is
first times I've seen Torres kind of make like a mistake. Or it wasn't really even a mistake, but it was just, yeah, as you said, just kind of shoved off so easily.
Yeah, and I need to give a shout out to Telemans. We've talked a lot beginning of the season where Onana was going to be that big difference maker and possible transfer of the season in the Premier League, but uh Tillemans, man, he was my man of the match. He looked amazing. He ended up getting an assist, but I think throughout this year he's kind of gone um kind of under the radar as one of the top midfielders in the league.
I think so too, because I know we give a lot of props to Morgan Rogers just because deservedly so. He's pretty exciting to watch when he plays. And then Onana has been getting credit just having that big move and
Hmm.
improving them defensively, and going forward with like being so um being a threat like airily. But I think Tillemans, he's the one that kind of makes them tick.
Hmm. That
Sets the
tempo
tempo.
setter.
Yeah. So I don't think he gets enough love than he deserves. I was gonna say I did watching that game back, I did see like Watkins seem a bit frustrated um at times.
Hmm.
There were a few instances where like I think he was just a bit frustrated he wasn't getting the service earlier. Um I think it was one where you had mentioned where like Digne just like Watkins
Oh,
made that run and like Digne just decided to do a cutback and Watkins just you could see just yelling at Digne.
yeah. Villa, that's the one thing with the crosses, man. They love a good cutback. Rogers had one that would have been, it was like an open net essentially. Like I would have expected someone of his quality to bang it in, but way off target. But Watkins, man, some of the runs he makes is very unselfish and lets his teammates kind of things up or open things up for his teammates. Man, I can't speak today. Um,
That was a really impressive goal too that he scored.
hmm.
He made that header look a lot easier than it actually was, and with quite a bit of power.
Yeah, he was able to like snap his neck and get power into that. It's not easy to do. But speaking of Tillemans and being a tempo setter, um, I think we need to go to St. Mary's with Southampton and Leicester. One of my possible super subs I was thinking this week was actually um, Harry Winks. He, I don't know if he ended up getting an assist, but he came on for Leicester in the second half, a half like straight out of half, and he was one of those guys that completely changed the game um, in the midfield and was really able to dictate the play. But yeah, just to kind of summarize the game, uh, Cameron Archer finally got on the score sheet, scoring nice finish within 10 minutes, and Southampton scoring another goal in the first half. And they were on fire, but then Leicester second half kind of switch it around. Bonate getting a goal, Vardy scoring a PK. Ryan Fraser got a red for Vardy would have had essentially like a tap in, but Fraser, he had this very sneaky little tug on him, so he couldn't kick it, so he got sent off for that. And then yeah, the winner was scored by Jordan Ayew. Um, it's funny to see him in a Leicester shirt. I don't know why, but got the winner.
Speaking of red cards, there were quite a bit of red cards this weekend, even just Saturday.
Oh yeah, Fulham and Villa, there were two red cards as well.
hmm Yeah, Ryan Fraser though. When they went to VAR, I was so confused, but then like when you see the replay, it's like, yeah, it's pretty obvious. I
Yeah,
think
well, because I was confused, like, why didn't Vardy just tap that in? I was like, dude, what? Um, but then you're like, oh shoot, okay.
um it was interesting to see Russell Martin like after the game. He during like the post game interview, he kind of singled out, or he didn't like directly single out a player, but he's like, when a player makes these kind of mistakes or something, you can't win or something. Um, I gotta find the exact quote, but like he was like indirectly kind of singling out a player, so I don't know who that's directed towards.
Yeah, I'm not sure who he was talking about, but yeah, I don't like when coaches kind of do that in public, calling out their own players like that. I mean, that's never really a morale booster. And then the way he was just talking about like he met with the board and stuff of Southampton and that his job is secure. I just don't like managers, especially when a team is struggling like this, to kind of beat down on their own players and not take responsibility.
And again, Facundo Buonate, he looked really impressive. Um,
Yeah, that's a great signing for them.
Very good signing.
But after that win for Leicester, that takes them up to 14th now. Um, they have 2 wins and 3 draws, so I think better than what most people expected out of them coming into the season.
Relegated team, so
I think I had them relegated. I think I had all 3 teams that came up to be relegated. And then Southampton, they're struggling down there with 1 point. And then the last game in the Premier League on Saturday was Bournemouth Arsenal. So this was a game that we made a prediction on the pod, and we were pretty close. We said, assuming Saka doesn't play, 2-1 to Bournemouth. Ended up being 2-0 to Bournemouth. Um, and I think the big talking point here was Arsenal getting a red card, Saliba getting that red card.
controversial.
In the first half, that was somewhat controversial. I don't necessarily think so, just because he was clear on goal. Um, but Bournemouth ended up winning 2-0. Christie getting a goal, and then Kluivert scoring a penalty. Oh, that could have been another super sub, honestly. Both these guys came on as subs, and the first one was, I think it was like a corner kick play, it looked like.
They took a page out the Arsenal's book.
Yeah, exactly. And Christie had a nice finish, but I think it was assisted by Kluivert. So Kluivert had an assist and a goal for that game.
So
So
you didn't
ma-
think it was a red?
yeah, main talking point I think is the Saliba, even though I don't think that's the main talking point because Bournemouth were already playing well
I
even before
think
the red and had opportunities, but obviously that's the big um talking point, especially for the Arsenal fan base, that will cry your ear off about it.
mhm.
I think it was a clear red. Like the ball, I get it if like Evan Nilsson wasn't able to control it or something, and like bad touch, and then Saliba pulls him down or something. That I get, okay, not, but like I mean, he took a good touch, and it was path right into goal. Saliba was the last man defending.
Raya was kind of off his way off his line, backtracking.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a guaranteed goal, but I mean, a goal is never guaranteed. But I mean, it's still your last defender.
Hmm.
It's the rules, man.
Um, that's crazy though. Arsenal, that's what is it? F- 3 red cards already this year. Um,
Rice, him, Trussard. Yep, three reds.
and all 3 they couldn't see it out. Or no points basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was also a deserved red, but to your point, Bournemouth, even before the red, they were the better team. Um, Evan Nielsen, he had a good performance, even though he wasn't on the score sheet. Uh,
hmm
and then I think that midfield for Arsenal that was stinky. Uh,
Yeah, we were texting about that because they didn't really have someone creative in that midfield. And Mourinho, I don't think he's that type of profile. I thought he was more of a holding type midfielder.
yeah, he's kind of like that. He's not even really box to box. He kind of sits in.
Yeah,
Uh,
Declan Rice is box to box, but I mean, you had Party, Mourinho, and then uh, Havertz was like the main forward. So
yeah, that midfield 3 combined pace of like 60. But I thought that was a fault of Arteta, because I think historically, like Arsenal, they're willing to give the youngsters a chance.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, just unfortunate due to injuries, but like just look at Jack Wilshere
Yeah.
given a chance.
This man bringing it all the way back.
So I'm like,
Oh, days when Arteta wasn't even playing. Bro, what?
why not like go give um that one kid a chance? He was on the bench, Ethan one week.
Oh, dude. So I had that in my notes. I thought he was the best player for Arsenal. Or okay, no, I take that back. Declan Rice put in a performance for Arsenal. He seemed like the only person on that pitch for Arsenal that gave a F. I'm not gonna say the
Yeah, I
word,
think he's the
but
only one that could hold his like
yeah,
head high after that game.
he had a good performance. But yeah, aside from him, I thought when Wary looked incredible and he came on for only what, 10 minutes maybe,
Mhm.
but he should have been the guy in the midfield.
Yeah, I
I
think
completely agree.
yeah, Rice, him, and then just either
Party
or
or
Party. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
because I think um like why not give your youngsters a chance? I mean, this is a perfect game to test it out, and if he shines, then great. If not, then you just know he's got to develop more, maybe. Um,
And the interesting thing is like for him to be so young, I mean, looked incredible, but he also looked calm and like
not
it kind
panic.
of like, yeah, he didn't look like he panicked or any. He looks like he's like done this for years, which is incredible. But I know the Arsenal, a lot of Arsenal fans have been hyping this kid up for like a year or two. I didn't know much about him, just YouTube clips, but it's like they're playing U18, whatever. But to see him doing it in this big stage is pretty incredible. I think Odegaard and Saka is rumored to be out this coming weekend against Liverpool. Unfortunately, I mean, I want to see the best 11 go against the best 11, but if that's true, I want him in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think if it's this three again in the midfield versus Liverpool, I think Liverpool. I mean, they're another level
Yeah, it's
from
gonna be a
performance,
clapping.
so it's going to be yeah.
And then I mean, another key part of this game was Martinelli missed a. Kepa had a terrible turnover, kind of just passed it to Arsenal,
Oh
and
yeah,
and then Martinelli. I mean, Kepa good save, but Martinelli should have finished that, But then right after that, Bournemouth go ahead and score. So I mean, what difference, that just those two moments make in the entire score line, and we'd probably be having this discussion of, oh, Arsenal overcome 10 men. Da, da, da.
yeah. I thought it was just a weird. This was one of those games where it just felt kind of weird, where Arsenal just looked like they were lacking a bit of energy. Um,
Quality too. Raya looked
Quality.
bad on his feet.
Yeah, which is that's the one thing he's known for. So
He about tripped on his own shoe. I was like, dude, what?
apparently he proposed the night before. So I don't know if he was
The night before?
yeah night before
That's a little insane.
yeah
He probably was partying too much.
hmm yeah. So Arsenal taking a loss early in the year. I mean it's still really early in the season, but now going on to Liverpool without Saka, Odegaard, and Saliba now. Um, I think unfair to I always forget how to say his last name. Kiwior.
Hmm.
Unfair to him, but he had like that bad back pass that led to the PK.
Yeah, just poor quality. That's not like him.
And then Calafiori's probably gonna be out this weekend as well. So I
Wait,
don't
what happened to Calafiori?
know. Apparently he got injured in the game yesterday. Um
See, you know what's gonna annoy me this coming weekend?
yeah, I could already foresee the Arsenal fans.
Yeah, Arsenal fans complaining about, oh, if we had da da da, if we had Odegaard, we would have won. Like,
But that's
no.
what makes a team good is like have the depth behind um like City. If City's down like lost one of their crucial players in Rodri, um
Yeah, and De Bruyne.
And De Bruyne still pulling out wins. Might not be the
Hmm.
prettiest of wins, but I mean,
Yeah, completely agree. But I mean, we've spoken about this in length, but Arsenal, where are they gonna get their goals from? I mean, like where? I don't want to jump into Champions League, but let's jump into Champions League. They won 1-0 against Shakhtar. Dude, they scored off of a freak goal. Martinelli hits the post, or Martinelli shoots it, deflects off a player, hits the post, ricochets off the post, hits the keeper in the butt, and goes in. Like that's the type of goal they needed to get a win against Shakhtar, you know? This is Shakhtar we're talking. Come on now. And we're talking about a team that should be title contenders for Premier League, really. Um, so it's funny. It's funny, but I'm here for the Arsenal fan base to come crying again. Um,
status on Arteta would be if you think Arsenal fans are gonna turn on him.
I don't think so because Arsenal fans love to talk about Arteta like he's the next big thing. I do think Arteta is a good manager. Tactically, I don't think he has a great squad, which is crazy to say considering how much money they've spent. But I think there's a lot of positions that he could upgrade. Um, Saka is a great player, but maybe having some depth there.
Yeah,
Martinelli
I think they're
is,
like solidified starting 11 apart from like a striker is quite solid, but like subs wise, like they don't really have.
yeah, I think defense they're good on,
Oh,
but
yeah, more than enough.
yeah, their attack they need some depth, and then Martinelli, I think he's a bang on average attacker. That's a position they need to upgrade.
Mhm. He's one of those that's dangerous off the bench, obviously, but week in and week out starter, I don't think he'll
Hmm.
cut it for him.
And same with Trussard. I think he's a good like substitute off the bench, but
Never
uh,
makes the same impact when he starts, so.
no, he's good against tired legs. So, um, but I think we can move on to Sunday's games in the Premier League. First one was Wolves versus City.
Poor Gary. Oh, Gary.
Gary O'Neill. Another loss for the Wolves, 2-1. They
Another.
actually another one. Um, so the best Norwegian on the field ended up scoring 7 minutes in. Um, and
Good
then
one.
Vordio, man, this man stays scoring. You know, that was one player when City signed him. I was like, what is all this Vordio hype? You know, like what, 80 mil or whatever for this defender? What is this hype? Like he had a nice World Cup showing, but I'm I hate when people get bought right after these short international tournaments, but he's really proved me wrong. He's looked good for City. Scored an absolute banger, and then John Stones came and saved the day
Thomas
for Pep.
Shelby.
Shout out Peaky Blinders if for those listening didn't get the reference. But what's your verdict on the winning goal? Was that a foul or
No, I
offsides?
don't even know what. Yeah, I didn't even know what they were looking at. Because even with the VAR on the slow mo instant replay, I was like, what are they checking? Um, so I thought it was unfortunate that it was so late. Um, but again, Wolves, they aren't good at set pieces, especially when it comes to corners. This is like, I think it's the fifth goal that they've conceded from a corner,
Hmm.
this season.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And crazy stat of this game. So they've conceded 5 goals from corners this year,
Hmm.
including that City game. Can you guess how many corners they conceded that game?
This past game,
Yeah.
I'll say like 3 or 4.
Uh, nah, City, they had 18 corners in the game.
They had 18 corners.
Yeah. The
Jeez.
ones, I mean, yeah. But I thought the game itself, Wolves were really hard to break down. Um, I think one player who really stood out was Mario Lemina. That boy was putting in a shift. Um, Defensively, like he was covering so much ground. Um, and he was rock solid. So I felt really bad. Like all their hard work was just undone. Gary O'Neal just looked so devastated. I felt so bad.
Yeah, I thought Savino was really giving them trouble though. Out Nori was getting cooked on that right side. Not sure why they kind of flipped with Doku coming out on the right, but I think Savino should have just stayed out there the whole time. Doku ended up getting an assist, but Semedo was playing well against him. Um, but when it comes to like when you have a game plan of just sitting back the entire game and saying, "Hey, try to score on us," one mistake, and that happened with Doku and Semedo. Like Semedo kind of got doubled up, and City ended up scoring, but that's just what happens when you let teams like, especially like City, you just kind of sit back. You can't switch off for 1 second, or else they're
Mhm.
gonna eventually capitalize.
Yeah. That was because I thought City it could have ended in a draw just how the game was playing out too with Jose Sa making like I think he had like two or three ridiculous saves. So I was like,
Hmm.
might be one of those days for City. Um, but yeah, they just pulled through.
And then moving on to, I
Oh,
think the.
sorry, one more thing on that Bardiol topic. Uh
Mhm.
Pep, that's the one player he's turned into a demon now. Bardiol. That man is he might be like one of the best left backs out in the Premier League, I think.
Premier League, yeah, I think him or Cucurella. Um, but yeah, I know we talked about it last week, but yeah, he might be have a shout for the best left back in the world because we were talking about Cucurella or DeMarco.
Hmm.
They're already on the mix, but yeah, I think it's time to move on now to the best game of the weekend, Liverpool versus Chelsea. Uh, Super hyped up here, especially because people were saying, Liverpool's had an easy schedule. They're not really all that. But, they ended up winning 2-1, unfortunately. Salah getting a penalty in the first half, and then Nicholas Jackson scored beautiful finish second half, right when the half started, and then Curtis Jones with the winning goal. Uh, my main takeaway from this game was, wow, I thought we looked good. Y- Liverpool, yeah, they've maybe had an easier schedule, but they've dominated every game they've been in. And they're they're serious title contenders this year. I mean, people forget last year they led for most of the league, out of all the teams. Um, they were number one for the longest and just kind of collapsed at the end. But I think Arne Slot also had a good game plan against us. I think McAllister was kind of moved to the bench just because he was traveling from South America, had a few international games, but Curtis Jones really filled in well. And, Cole Palmer, people were saying he had a bad game, but honestly, I think it was just because Curtis Jones really kind of shadowed him throughout the entire game. And Cole Palmer didn't have much space to do anything. Um, and then, Salah, his assist was brilliant. Like, that's the one thing he's added to his game now. Since he came to the Premier League, his thing was just goals, goals, goals. He was going to break records and stuff, but the one fault was like, oh, he's not a good playmaker. Like he can't make assists and stuff, but he's proving all the haters wrong. So that was an amazing assist. And then from a Chelsea perspective, uh, you know, I was hyped about when we signed Lavia a couple years ago, and I probably have to eat my words because I was like, oh, I'd rather have Lavia over Caicedo and Enzo, but Caicedo, he's been one of our best players as well. But him and Lavia together look amazing. So once Lavia kind of eases in to it, I think Enzo's going to be coming off the bench for us. Should. Um, and I think Reece James looked quite poor. It was nice to see him out there, but that was one of the worst games I've seen him in a Chelsea shirt. Um, just didn't look comfortable. He looked hesitant. Um, so hopefully we get Cucurella back and put Gusto out in the right. And maybe just ease Reece back into these games.
That was one thing I was scared about was because Reece James played quite a bit of minutes for being his first game back as well. So I was like,
Yeah.
I thought they would. I forgot that Cucurella was out, so I was like, oh, I thought they'd ease him into it, but that's the one issue we've seen is like just him getting rushed back and then reoccurring injury. So
Yeah, another player that I think really stood out for me was Trent. That's something under Arne's slot that's really improved with him. My criticism's always been his lack of defending ability and also he loses where he is on the pitch sometimes and teams can attack him. He's just always caught out of position, but uh this season he's really improved that aspect of his game. Lockdown Sancho, I thought he was good against Pedro Neto for the most part as well. Um, when Gomez came in, it was a little different. You could tell. But I think Trent was another player that had a great game for Liverpool. It was interesting to listen to some of the post game interviews too, where because we had a lot of the ball and people were like, "Oh, Chelsea dominated Liverpool, got lucky to come away with a win," but yeah, Curtis Jones was saying that this was all part of their game plan, was they would rather us have the ball and because they're so confident in their positioning and defending that they were comfortable letting us have the ball. But what they were not comfortable was them playing attack and they think that Chelsea is one of the most dangerous teams on transition, so they wanted to prevent that.
that
So I was
makes
like,
sense.
wow,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
because you
And
guys up front are just deadly quick.
mhm.
So yeah, that transition that makes sense.
Which is different under Arne Slot because with Klopp, Liverpool would never play that type of way, you know?
No, not at all. Um, I think if I had to throw my 2 cents into this game, I think this was a super entertaining game as a neutral to watch. Um, you've already harped on a lot of the points. I think Lavia, he's another one of those smooth operators, never seems rattled. Um, seems like he always has like ages on the ball. Um,
Hmm.
the way he plays, so calm. And then credit to Enzo Maresca. You've mentioned it before, but he's a very uh no nonsense type manager. If he sees something he doesn't like, he'll make that change right away. Saw Sancho didn't have the most of impacts.
Hmm.
He saw that right away. So second half, put in Neto right away to start the game. And then I thought it was kind of funny just seeing the goal scores for Liverpool. You were saying, oh, Curtis Jones is having a baby, so hopefully he's off. And then Salah growing that hair back. Hopefully he's kind of unfocused. And then they're the two that get on the score.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Um, but yeah, I think it was a game that you guys should definitely be proud of. Um,
Hmm.
those are some very, like you mentioned, Liverpool, they're going to be a title contender this year. So to put up a performance like that against them, I think is very positive signs.
Yeah, I think this is a definition of progress and process over results. Um,
Yes.
I'm always process over results because the results will eventually come. So I'm excited with what we're building. And Nicholas Jackson, man, another great finish, and he looks composed in front of goal now. So again, I'm gonna say it. He's gonna be our best striker at the end of his career. I know people would think I'm crazy, but I see it with him.
I still think he can't overpass the legend of Drogba, but yeah,
This might be another segment, but Drogba, he scored in the big moments when you needed him to, but other than that, I feel like he was a slightly overrated.
wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we might have to have another segment. I think Drogba, even if he doesn't have like the number of goals, like I think he was a very what's the word, like unselfish to let
Oh, for sure.
Lampard flourish.
Oh, for sure. He was a big reason why Lampard had so many goals, and assists. But yeah, I do think Nicholas Jackson has more talent to him than Drogba did.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think that first year you saw he was a very raw player.
Hmm.
He would be just like a nuisance, like causing havoc. But now he's really just adding the finishing touches on there to like really raise his game.
Hmm. His movement is top tier. That's elite. So, and he's able to really link up with our players nice. Like his link up play is beautiful, skills, and once a game, he has I text Trey all the time during the game, but whenever like if this was ever a prop bet, it's guaranteed to hit. He has one Cruyff a game completed, a game at least. So he loves a
It's
Cruyff
hilarious
pass.
when he got the yellow card for when they were setting up for the PK. He was like trying to get in the keeper's head, I think. Or not the keeper's head.
Salah
Yeah.
just clapping.
Yeah. Um, what did you think about I thought it was very odd that Liverpool, the way they were closing out the game, had the lead and like during stoppage time, whenever they got the ball, like they looked like they were trying to score another goal. And I was like, I wonder like why they weren't just trying to see it out instead.
You know what it was? It was the inner Jurgen Klopp in them. Just going for another goal. But yeah, under Arne Slot, that's usually like not how they would be playing. So I was
Exactly.
confused. I was like, Arne Slot's not like, is this the inner Klopp they're trying to get rid of?
Um, and then I guess one question I had for you was, where has Chukwuemeka been? Carney Chukwuemeka. I was a fan of his and I thought he was really going to be on the come up, but I haven't seen him this year.
Yeah, I know he started the season on an injury. Um, but I don't know where he's kind of been. I don't think he made the bench either. Um, he's been playing in the um, what's it called? The Conference League, but um, I guess he just Enzo doesn't see him fit for Premier League yet.
Wow. I thought he was like a top quality player that's really was going to raise his stocks this year,
Yeah, I don't see where he's who he starts ahead of though in our team.
especially with Lavia kind of fitting right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was we spent a good amount of time with.
Oh, we forgot one last game of Premier League. Um, Forest Palace.
Oh, on this was on a Monday, right?
Yep.
Chris Wood with another goal here.
Yep. Congrats to him. I think he's a going to be a father uh because of that celebration. But
He's
yeah,
halfway through double digits. You were saying he scored at 10 every Premier League season, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, halfway through already. What, 8 games in?
Yeah. It's a good
Wow.
pace. Yeah, Forest looked good. That was one team I'm definitely had to put my hands up. Had them in relegation zone, but they look pretty good. Quite solid at the back, and even without Gibbs White, they were looking pretty good on the attack.
Yeah, that man, Elliot Anderson was
He
a
had
really
a
good signing.
yeah, he had a really good game.
Yeah, I was again, I'm disappointed with Kamada this year for Palace. And
Mhm.
that wasn't a player that I was like super high on, but you were hyping him up and then I kind of like was kind of excited to see him perform in the Premier League and
Yeah, he was really good in Serie A, and then because he was when he was at his best in Serie A too, he was like playing or sorry, when he was at his best in the Bundesliga, he was playing under Glasner. So I thought
mm,
this reconnection um was gonna be like he was gonna be a big difference maker for Palace, but he's just been really disappointing for him. Um, Still winless, so not looking good for him.
3 points. So, but they can still escape. Ipswich is right there. Um, but yeah, I think now we can move out of the Premier League, give some love to some other leagues as well. I think we touched on the Real Celta Vigo game, so I don't want to touch on that too much. Was there any other comments you wanted to make on that game?
No, it's like you mentioned, just deja vu. There's not gelling well. And I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about Madrid anyways when we move on to Champions League talk. Um,
Yeah. And then I think the other game we can touch on is in La Liga this weekend was Atletico versus Leganes.
mhm.
Atletico ended up coming back and winning 3-1. Um, they were actually down pretty early on and didn't score their three until pretty late in the second half, and Griezmann gave them the go-ahead goal, and then uh, Sorloth kind of sealing it at the end, last minute goal,
Yeah, that's a nice
stoppage
thing
time,
by Griezmann.
cheeky touch.
It's funny because the guy who assisted that's I didn't put two and two together, but that's Diego Simeone's son.
Oh yeah, he's got the Simeone blood where he no quit mentality. Even on that play where he chased the ball down and like slid tackled to save it from going out.
'Cause I didn't realize he has three kids. One plays for Napoli, one's on Atletico, and then one plays on like a second tier Spanish team.
Ooh, it's gotta suck for that kid.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think I wouldn't say Julian Alvarez. I was debating whether to have him as a super sub. He looked incredible, and you could say he changed the game, but I think it was more Simeone. The changes he made kind of changed the game. And then kind of the tactics changed the game rather than the players. He brought in Alvarez and DePaul, and we're definitely more on the front foot in that second half. Um, and the high press really forcing Leganes to make some mistakes. Uh, I think help them seal that win.
Yeah, completely agree. I think when you play a team that's not as no disrespect to them, but not the highest of caliber teams,
Hmm.
just making those tweaks, just made a big difference.
Yeah. The celebration for the last goal was kind of sus. Sorloth scored, and then freaking Alvarez, legs wide open, jumped right on him, and then who else jumped on him? I think Simeone might have jumped on him too. I was like, bro, how is Sorloth carrying these two dudes?
Yeah,
It's like, bro, what? What's
he's a big
happening?
man though.
Yeah. And then I don't think we need to touch too much on the Barca Sevilla game. Barcelona have been looking incredible this year. Um, they dominated Sevilla, winning 5-1. Lewandowski scoring twice. Um, I think was Pedri's looked unbelievable this year, and I think he's a huge reason why Barcelona's been really good this year, going on attack because he's actually healthy now. And he's really the guy that gets it done for Barcelona. and pulls all the strings. He's a new Iniesta. Um, but yeah, something interesting with Barcelona too is just like the number of young players they have that like really grew up through their ranks and now are kind of playing together. Um, is another reason I think that yeah, they're so young, but they look so cohesive together.
Yeah, the one center back they have who's quite young, he
17-year-old.
impresses me all the time too. That Kubarsi kid.
Yeah, he's 17. He started today in the Champions League against Bayern.
Yeah, he looks like he's been just playing forever the way he plays.
Hmm. Um, but yeah, I think those were the few big La Liga games. Touched on Real a little in the beginning. Were there any other games from across the leagues that you wanted to touch on? I think Serie A, there were a few pretty good games.
Yeah, I think just want to give a shout out to Mr. Captain America, um, Pulisic. He's having a really good season. Um, got on the stat sheet, getting an assist in Milan's win 1-0 over Udinese. Um, and then uh, Juventus versus Lazio was an entertaining game. Um, it was unfortunate that Lazio had a player that got a red early on in the first half. But they were so resilient defensively through the game and really hard to break down. Um,
I
but
don't know. I thought Juventus were really unlucky. I thought their f finishing, Vlahovic hit the post a couple times. And I thought like every moment it was like Lazio was kind of tiptoeing to draw. Like it wasn't like a really good defending. I thought they were really struggling to hold on for their draw.
I think it was just a mix of I think Juventus when they did have the chances, it was just really poor finishing. So
It
just
was poor finish. Yeah. I thought they were also unlucky at times, not to get some of the finishes, especially Vlahovic. But one player that really stood out for me this year has been the one signing uh, from Porto. What's his name?
Conceição.
Conceição. Yeah, he's been a underrated player this year too. And that was a guy that I know you mentioned early in the podcast, but he completely kind of slipped my mind. It's like a guy that can make an impact for Juve.
Yeah, he's a really tricky player to deal with. And yeah, it's one of those where like one of those like super short players, low to the ground, and also really skillful.
Hmm.
And then one player also that Juventus have that I'm a fan of, that Kalulu center back. It's so
Mm.
crazy that like Milan, I don't know if it was a free transfer, but like leaving Milan to go to Juve, it's a crazy transfer.
Yeah, especially considering how young he is too.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, Juventus. I don't know. Vlahovic. He, uh, I'm hoping that he can get some goals. I'm a big fan of his. So he's already with like five, but I think he had a couple this game. He just kind of missed some chances that he would typically put away. Um,
And then one last Serie A game I wanted to touch on, or not even a game, but
mhm.
just a player give a shout out to in Serie A is Matteo Retegui for Atalanta.
Mm.
I know they played the last place team in Venezia, but this man, he's been looking like almost a transfer, um, best transfer so far for Serie A. Like his finishing, now he has 8 goals in 7 games. He just needs one more goal to basically tie Luca Toni's record of having the most goals to start the season with, as a new transfer. So that's pretty good company to be behind.
Yeah, it's not even just the fact that he's getting goals. The way he was able to finish this weekend was incredible with the
Good catch.
touch,
Yeah.
dribbling past the defender and the chip.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Good finish. And I thought with Skamaka hurt, um, it'd be tough, but he's been stepping up for sure.
Yeah, Atalanta is a team that's surprised me this year. I had them as one of the oh, what was like it wasn't like the most overrated team or the most disappointing team.
Mhm.
They were I think I had them as the most disappointing team and I said they wouldn't qualify for Europa or Champions League next year. But surprisingly, they've looked pretty good. And I mean, it looks like they're not going to lose Lookman, which is huge. And they finally got their number 10 back as well from injury. Uh, Zanioli or
Uh,
Zaniolo.
mhm.
Um, so I think it's looking up for Atalanta, and I might be wrong with that prediction. Um, and Champions League today, they dominated Celtic, but Kasper Schmeichel was on another level. And again, poor finishing for Atalanta. Zappacosta was making some poor choices going forward, but yeah, I think a few games that we can touch on from the Champions League, moving on to Champions League now is from Tuesday. We can probably the big game of that day was Real Madrid versus Dortmund. Dortmund up 2-0 at half, and Real Madrid score five straight in the second half. Yeah,
The Vinny show.
yeah. What were some of your takeaways?
Um, I just thought I thought the way Dortmund played was pretty well that first half. Real
Yeah,
Madrid,
key word there, first half.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or even the first 35 minutes really when they got their second goal. It felt like they kind of changed up their style of play after that second goal. Um, they were a bit more defensive minded or just trying to protect the lead. Um, so they're kind of straying away from how they usually play. Um, but I think
Yeah, and before you move on from that point, I completely agree. I think the downfall was that substitute um, that Dortmund made in like 10 minutes into the second half. I mean, Gittins was a player that he's your outlet, like one of your outlets. So why are you taking him out? So,
it might have
um,
been maybe a age thing. Like, I don't know. That was a weird sub.
yeah, but like it was obviously not like a like for like sub either. It was for a center back.
Mhm.
Um, so I completely agree that going defensive like that and inviting pressure against Real Madrid just wasn't smart. Considering in the first half too, Real Madrid were had a couple chances, hit the woodwork twice.
I don't know how Bellingham's hit that was crazy.
Yeah, he did not want to score against Dortmund, obviously, because that first touch was so bad.
Yeah, he tried so hard to miss.
Um, but yeah, I think I completely agree on that point that Dortmund's change of tactics kind of cost them because once they went down 2-0, things just momentum completely shifted.
Yeah,
Even after that first goal.
Real Madrid kind of woke up. Um,
Hmm.
they were asleep, and then after a goal, it was it's that meme where that guy's like laying back in the chair, and it's like you start losing
Time to
impatient.
play.
It's kind of like, um, and then second half, I think uh we just saw what Vinicius is made of, why he deserves the Ballon d'Or. He just
Mhm.
single-handedly dominated um with ease.
I was getting annoyed with the commentator. There was one where they're like, "Oh, look at this Mbappe uh assist or whatever."
To Rudiger, that first goal.
Yeah, and it was like kind of just like deflected.
Yeah, and
But I
it's with
mean,
the cup. Yeah.
but like I feel like the main like reason it was a goal was because of the play with Vinny and ultimately Modric's pass that kind of broke open Dortmund.
Yes.
Um and so commentators it was getting on my nerve, but anyways, yeah, I completely agree. Vinny, um, Ballon d'Or like should be a certified winner.
Yeah, I think yeah. Vinny, that second goal was just so hyped too. When he just like I think it was the second goal when he skins Emery Chan and Emery Emery Chan just yelling at his teammate like to go guard Vinny instead, and then Vinny just buries it. I'm like, man, this he's just special.
Yeah, and then even like the his last goal, like where he ran across like the entire pitch, like
Exactly. Or I think I might have been thinking of the third
that
goal,
one.
hat trick
Okay.
that he sealed.
Which is like, some players where like because he's not really known for like that type of like just a speed demon like that type of guy, but like
Hmm.
he kind of like turned on the Jets there. I was like, whoa. I mean, he's got like pace to him, but like I didn't expect him to kind of do it with ease like that.
And I felt bad for that Ryerson fullback again. I know
Yeah.
he got megged so hard in the Champions League final, and then in
Final.
the game he was getting toyed a little bit. Um,
Man, I was hoping Rodrigo would score that one where he hit the crossbar, to kind
oh
of restart the comeback because that's a player that like, man, he's goes so underloved.
yeah, with Mbappe and Vinny, just
Yeah.
that was a ridiculous first touch to even like set himself
Dude.
up to hit the bar.
The thing is like people were like don't even talk about it, but like to those who really like have watched soccer for so long and like played it, like you like that type of skill is like it looks easy, because like you see it all the time, but like to do it like that with under pressure is like
Under pressure, getting the shot off that quick.
falling at the
Yeah.
same time. Yeah. Just like insane.
I would say the only takeaway from this game was defensively. Props to Jude Bellingham on that third goal. He put in a shift to go like track his man all the way back and set up
Hmm.
Vinny. But one person that could be a liability at times is Lucas Vasquez.
Yep.
Because I mean, he's a naturally like winger, but just been converted to right back. So with Carvajal out, um, I mean, Real Madrid, they're still dominant, but that's the one piece that could be a liability for them.
Yeah. Completely agree. Um, but I think Modric is a player that has to start for them. I know he's getting up there with age, but he's just different, dude. He,
Who's
like
your, if you're Carlo Ancelotti, who's your midfield three?
I think I'd have to go with Camavinga and Modric and Valverde in the middle. Um, and then I don't see. I love Rodrigo, but I would probably go. So I'd probably go those three in the midfield, and then have Bellingham play kind of like a false nine almost type role, and then have Mbappe and Vinny kind of playing the two up top slash wide.
Gotcha. Yes,
What would you kind of set up as? Because I feel like you got to play back four with this Real Madrid team.
yeah. Um, yeah, it's hard. I think Modric is just one of those you rotate him in or depending on the matchup, I guess.
Hmm.
Bellingham dropping into the Bellingham, Camavinga, and Valverde, and then front three of the Rodrigo, Mbappe, Vinny.
Is your ideal lineup? But like, if it was like you're playing in the like a Champions League game, what's
Uh,
your lineup? Like top game?
um, I would
Like
still,
I get it. Oh, so you would put Modric on the bench?
yeah.
That's insane. Wow,
It's so
dude,
tough though.
bro, Modric, you would put Modric on the bench, bro?
I don't
He's he
know.
he opens up teams like crazy.
I know he does.
And he sets the tempo, gets them going forward.
I think it's a little bit of the just because I'm a huge fan of Camavinga, but I think maybe Bellingham, Modric, Valverde.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that was basically the lineup this game, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think
Nice issue to have if you're Ancelotti. Pick
yeah,
him.
and that's funny because Ancelotti's always had that type of issue where he's had such big names and he's tried to have make everyone kind of happy.
Mhm.
But similar issue here. But yeah, I think Modric, if it's your best 11 you have to put out, Modric has to be in there.
Yeah.
Um, were there any other games that you wanted to touch on from the first day of Champions League on on
Yeah.
Tuesday?
Um,
We touched on Arsenal and Shakhtar, but
touch on that
skip over
one.
that.
Shakhtar could have actually grabbed like a few, like a late equalizer, but
Yeah. Arsenal did defend well, I think, and probably deserved to win, but still they got kind of lucky. But
we'll just have to see how
digress.
serious Calafiori's injury is. But
Hmm.
um, I think one other game was Juventus versus Stuttgart. Um,
Mm.
that was an interesting game considering Juventus was home, but Stuttgart just absolutely tore them apart. I know the game only ended 1-0. Um, Stuttgart, they missed a PK, but
And they scored in like the stoppage time too.
yeah, that was a really cheeky finish the way he flicked up on the touch.
Hmm.
Um, but it was just crazy game considering Juventus being home, but Stuttgart just outplayed them. I mean, they had 22 shots to their 7. They had more possession. Um, and just the chances, quality of chances they had were like a lot better. Your boy Undav was a bit of a menace, causing issues for
Hmm.
Juventus's back line, but that was a game where I think Stuttgart, if they were a bit more clinical, could have gone out of hand.
Yeah, I
Which
think
was crazy.
Stuttgart.
Sorry, which was a crazy performance to put in after coming off a big defeat against Bayern over the.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I was like, I was kind of worried for that game for Stuttgart, just because Juventus has been in good form this year. Stuttgart lost 4-0, so I was like, this is gonna be a tough game, but yeah, they dominated. Um, and I think similar story, Tuesday in Paris and Paris with PSG tying PSV. And PSV went on an early lead, but uh, I think PSG were easily the most dominant team there. Um, Hakimi ended up like saving them, getting a point. Um, but yeah, that was another game where PSG should have probably had like 3 goals, but ended up just coming away with a draw.
When it's one of those again where um, we were talking about like a couple episodes ago when Dembele, he's a good player in there, but at times it's just his finishing can let him down.
Hmm.
Final product.
Yeah. And then moving on to Wednesday, I think the biggest one, the only one that I was able to really catch is aside from like the Atalanta game, was Barca Bayern. Um, man, it is crazy to think Rafinha played for Leeds at one time and they got relegated.
Yeah, that's a crazy come up. But I think we always saw like a player in there when he was at Leeds. Always
Hmm. You
player.
just kind of forget he played for Leeds though, you know? It's like, wow, he started at the bottom
I
there.
will say he did have somewhat of a tough start
Hmm.
of Barca life.
He's found form.
And I didn't realize he was like their captain. I thought like it went to Lewandowski after Ter Stegen and De Jong.
Yeah, but I know earlier you mentioned, some of the youth for the Barca back line. I think that's an issue they're gonna have. Yeah, I know Bayern only scored once, but Kane, I was surprised Kane, like he had a good finish, but there was another header he scored, but he was offsides, which I was surprised he just with his experience he didn't stay on that header. But um, I think that youth back line is gonna come back to haunt Barca going forward, especially assuming Pedri stays healthy. He's the engine of that team. He makes everything happen. If he stays healthy, Barca should be fine going on attack, but that back line is a little sus for me. I know Martinez is an old head, but aside from him, they're all pretty young.
Yeah, I think that one kid for Barca, Alejandro Balde, I think, that left back.
Hmm.
I'm a fan of his. Um, I think he's really quality, but yeah, at times he can get kind of pushed off a bit easily.
Hmm.
I think that's just being like youth, not developing yet. Um, but yeah, Kubarsi, I'm really impressed with. And that one player who's kind of defensive role in that midfield, Casado, he had a really nice assist. But again,
Hmm.
it's just the youth could be the factor that plays into them. They're
I
down.
mean, yeah, Kubarsi, yeah, he for a 17-year-old, like well, even for any player, he's really good for any age. Like, especially for a 17-year-old, he looks amazing. But I will say he's gotten a little lucky at times. I mean, even this Bayern game ex specifically, he was caught out plenty of times, and Bayern just failed to capitalize and make. Harry Kane was making some crazy runs uh behind that the two center backs, and Bayern just couldn't find them. But I th if Bayern were on a better day, or if there's a better team out there, um, I think they would easily kind of pick apart Barca. But going forward, like Barca, even off the bench, like crazy to see Ansu Fati, Dani Olmo coming off the bench, and
Mhm.
Gavi. It's crazy.
Nice to see De Jong's return too.
Oh
Um,
yeah, De Jong came on too.
I will say in Bayern's point of view, Kim Min Jae's just I don't know, ever since his transfer, it's just been a little disappointing. Napoli, he was like a force to be reckoned with, and then ever since his move to Bayern, he's had a lot of shaky moments. Did you think that Lewandowski goal, you think that was a foul? Um,
Where he got shoved in the back.
yeah, I thought it was a little soft to be a foul, but I know commentators were like, yeah, this
I
look
thought that was a foul.
you thought it was,
Yeah, it looked pretty obvious, especially when you're in the air like that. It's hard. Like when you get pushed, you're just kind of like you have no control when you're in the air.
I thought it was a slight, like so slight though, where it looked like for his stature, I don't know if he should be getting.
But you're in like the air though. You can't like control yourself. Like I get it if you got pushed off and he was like on the ground, but while you're in the air, you're kind of like you have no control.
And then I thought it was pretty comedic, in terms of just the quality Bayern have when they made this sub, in the second half, bringing all four players in at once. They had like Musiala, uh,
Yeah.
and Coman come off the bench and Sane all at once.
Yeah. Sane's a player that his career kind of really fell off. Even he doesn't look very impressive at Bayern.
Mm-mm.
He was always kind of a pace merchant for me,
Even in his City days, you think?
a little. Yeah. He had the quality, but if he didn't have that pace, he wouldn't be as good.
Yeah, the having the pace definitely helps, but
Hmm.
it's
And now that he's getting
a
older, like it just.
bit disappointing.
Hmm. Were there any other games that you were able to catch from today that you wanted to touch on?
Um, that was the biggest one. Um, I caught a little bit of the Atletico versus Leal game. Uh,
Hmm.
Leal again pulling out a win against the La Liga team. Uh,
Mm.
it was really funny just the way it happened too. Is they get a goal and then to seal the win they get a PK. Um, but yeah, it was a little unlucky in Atletico's point of view, just because Sorloth he had good chances but just wasn't clinical. Um, so I think it was a bit unlucky, but it's a really good start to Leo's campaign in the Champions League.
Jonathan David.
Hmm I feel like he's always rumored for like a big move, but it never happens.
Yeah. Um, I think now we can just move on, quickly just to maybe some games to watch tomorrow and then for the weekend, maybe make a few predictions.
Oh, sorry. And then quick shout out in the Champions League, sitting top of the table, Aston Villa.
Oh yeah, shout out to John McGinn getting his first goal in the Champions League.
Oh yeah, that's a player that I'm sure they're happy to be back.
hmm It's awesome to see him uh kind of be through it all with Villa. And like starting from the bottom of the Villa and now to the top.
Crazy though, when they were in the championship, you remember McGinn, he's the one that got like the goal this season.
The
That
banger, yeah. Volley.
and then one last a team that lost but finally ended their impressive streak was Benfica. They lost to Feyenoord 3-1. Benfica were home, but this was Benfica's first loss at home after 28 home games. So that was a really
Oh,
impressive run that came to an end.
all right. Yeah, I don't know much about the Benfica team. Might have to catch one of their games. Um, but yeah, I think we should move on now. I know we're racing against time, but just to tomorrow's game, don't want to take up too much time, but maybe I think the big one tomorrow that really sticks out to me is the uh, United Fenerbahce matchup. It's probably going to be a close game there. That Europa League game. Um, it's in Turkey, so
Tough environment.
for sure. And I mean Jose, is a top manager, so and Fenerbahce's got a lot of experienced players, so that'll be a fun game to watch.
Please don't haunt us, Fred.
I hope he eats against y'all. Um, do you have any predictions for this game?
On paper, should be winning. Hopefully, the performance we carried out against Brentford, second half, if we can carry it out like that, should be getting a win. But um, always stay cautious against a Jose Mourinho team and an experienced Fenerbahce team. Um, so I think with the form we just came off the weekend, we should pull out a win.
Yeah, I think I'll go with a draw, maybe 1-1. I think Jose will kind of frustrate United and catch them off the break is my bet, but United will end up scoring. So I'm gonna go 1-1. Moving on into the weekend, uh, some games that really stand out on Saturday. I think Premier League, there aren't too many like standout games to touch on, except La Liga. I think we have to talk about the El Clasico. It's about to go down, Madrid Barca. Um, I hope to see Modric play. I'd love to see because I mean, how many more Clásicos does he have left? But um, I think Barca here, I think they'll win in in like a 3-1 type fashion.
Oh wow, 3-1. Um, I think if Real Madrid play like they did against Dortmund first half and the previous games they've kind of carried out, Barca will be favorites. But I think just coming off that high, um, on Tuesday, I think also being at home, they're just so dominant. So I'll go 2-1 Madrid.
Hmm. Yeah, I think as of now, like Madrid probably should be favorites, but um, Rodrigo's gonna be out. Um, and then I just feel like Barcelona right now just they look um they look solid together, and more cohesive going forward versus Madrid.
Mhm.
Um, so it is at the Bernabeu though, which is a really tough place to play. Um, but I think I'll still have Barca pulling that upset.
I think the only um Premier League game as well that's gonna have quality Saturday would be Villa versus Bournemouth. Who do you have for?
Yeah, I think this one again. I don't know if Villa they're going to be riding the Champions League high, come down, but I might. I think it might be a draw here.
I think draw is fair. I think Villa might pull a win though. I
Yeah, they did rotate quite a bit, so I think Villa might pull the win actually.
Yeah, they're
So,
resting quite a bit of people.
um, Fulham Everton will be interesting, considering Everton they're kind of on a hot streak right now.
I feel like Goodison Park's always a tough place to go and play. So
And Wolves Brighton too. Wolves need a win. So, Gary O'Neill's kind of in the hot seat and people have been saying, it's not fair to sack him, but I mean, this is the game to prove it against Brighton. Do you
yeah,
think they get a win?
it does help that in a bad way that Welbeck's hurt. Helps Wolves. But I think I think it might be a draw.
You think it's a low scoring draw?
2-2
Yeah, I think Brighton are about to score 2 or 3 goals on Wolves too.
demolish.
Um,
You think?
it'll probably be a close game, but I think Brighton are the better team.
Gotcha.
Sunday, there's a few good games here. Both our teams play. We got to save up our bubbles for supporting West Ham this weekend. Uh,
Oh,
y'all
if
better not.
we don't beat West Ham with a Mo Kudos list West Ham team, we should be pulling out the win.
I'm gonna
So
buy some bubbles for this game if y'all lose.
I'll be very disappointed if we lose.
Um, but yeah, I mean, honestly, you guys should win, but I think you guys will come away with a draw, is my guess. I
Sorry,
think Lopetegui is gonna play very defensive and annoying.
to that point of Lopetegui, I know you mentioned Gary O'Neill kind of being on the hot seat. Who do you think's more on the hot seat, him or Lopetegui? Just because of the transfers that has had.
I think Lopetegui is more in the hot seat, in my opinion, because Wolves have they're sitting at the bottom, but they've looked better than West Ham. So I think that's why
Yeah.
I'd say Lopetegui's in the hot seat. You?
I would agree. Uh,
Yeah.
Wolves, yeah, like we mentioned before, they're where they're sitting at the table just doesn't reflect how they've actually played. So
But I mean, don't lose to West Ham this weekend, buddy. Um, and then Newcastle, Chelsea. I think this will be a fun game at the Bridge, but I do expect us to win here. We should have key players back for Fofana and Cucurella. So,
that'll be an entertaining game for sure. Newcastle
um,
been a little disappointing, um,
yeah,
considering they're not playing in European tournaments.
hmm I agree. And then the big one, Arsenal, Liverpool at Emirates. Uh, yeah, that's what's your prediction for this one?
Sorry, Arsenal fans. I'll let you guys use your injury and red card excuses, but I don't think this one will be close. I think maybe 3-1.
Yeah, I think the score line, Liverpool won't win by 1 or 2 goals just because Arsenal are so good defensively, but I think Liverpool will control that game. And it will never be in doubt that they were gonna lose. Is my guess.
I think if um who would you say your back four is for Arsenal? If Saliba with Saliba hurt, I mean Saliba red card, and then if Calafiori's hurt,
Yeah, assuming Calafiori's hurt, I mean you'd have to go Saliba in the back or Gabriel in the back and then um right back, you'd have to go Ben White. So those are two penciled in. And then left back, I guess, is a little tricky. I don't know if you'd want to go with Zinchenko or Tomiyasu. Um, but I think he'll probably go with Zinchenko, and then he'll probably put Kyrior in the middle with Gabriel.
Yeah, I think he could resort to maybe putting Ben White back in the center back and putting Tomiyasu on the right. But I think if Zinchenko, if yeah, I think Zinchenko will start, and that would be a big issue.
Hmm.
Squad will be cooking all day.
Yeah, I think even if it's Kyrior in the back, I think Tomiyasu should, but Tomiyasu should be the guy playing left back defensively against Salah, but Zinchenko offers a little more going forward.
That's true.
But I think Liverpool should dominate that game. But just some other games to look out for, I think, are in La Liga, Atletico Real Betis. Real Betis has been a team that's been struggling this year. Slower start. That was a team that I was kind of high on, possible Champions League bound. Um, and then Inter, Juventus also play. So I think that's a top three battle
Yes. That'll be
right
a
now.
fun one to watch.
Um,
Inter sneaked out a win today versus the Young Boys, so but they're on fire.
yeah, that's true. And then your Roma, they're playing Fiorentina. Fiorentina's been on a hot streak. They just came off a 6-0 dub last weekend, so
De Gea, get to see him again.
yeah. But
And then last but not least, as always, McDonald's League. We got Marseille, my boys, taking on PSG. So we'll see how that.
I did watch some of the Marseille game actually. Um, at least the first half. Uh, man, Greenwood is looking kind of scary. I don't know if it's just the level of competition or what, but Greenwood is looking disgusting.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an easier matchup, but yeah, we'll see. PSG will be a real test now. So I think that wraps up our games coming up this weekend. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another episode. Um, we'll come back next week on hopefully United and Chelsea pulling out dubs again. And until then, peace out.